Hi everybody, it's your baby boomer Kitty Lane from the Peninsula in Virginia, back with another Create and Relate. So how is everyone? Okay, well, we are still at 109 subscribers. I'm still tickled about it. Moving forward, I got my first ding warning video suspension or whatever yesterday. I did a short, and maybe I'm not understanding something, but if I go into YouTube's sounds and I pick a sound that is by a well-known artist and use that as background music, how do I get a copyright warning when I'm using what you've provided for me? I don't get it, but I didn't argue. I just went head on and took the video down, trashed it, and being that I save all of my videos, I just reposted it with no music. Simple as that. So there, YouTube. Meanies. So, health update. I don't feel great. I do not feel great at all. I think every joint in my body that can hurt is hurting. I contribute a lot of that to the fact that it's raining. The rain that we were supposed to get Friday night and all day and night Saturday, it did not actually come until today, which presents our first challenge as far as the kids are concerned, because I pick up the kids on my scooter, which the motor is not supposed to get wet, but I have not been able, as sore as I am, it all boils down to as sore as I am, I'm going to try to walk around there and get the kids. I am. There's no shelter for me to stand in, and I really don't know anybody out here well enough to sit in their vehicle, and my vehicle is nowhere on the premises, and so I can't use that for shelter. You can't see the bus stop from where I am, so yeah, it's a predinky winky, but we'll figure it out. We've got a little more than an hour to do that. And I still might be hard-headed and do the scooter. Just give it time to dry out. I know that whichever route I take, when I get back in, I'm definitely going to have to shower and lay it down. My body does not do good in the rain. I love rain. Ever since I was a child, I used to love to, well, being from Carolina, we lived at the bottom of, we lived in a valley, you might as well say. It wasn't a true valley. It's just that the streets around us were kind of hilly, and we lived at the lowest point. So whenever it rained really bad, it would flood on our corner. And as a child, younger than 8, I used to play in the floodwaters. Of course, when I got older, we started hearing and realizing how dangerous that was. Thank God. I didn't get anything as a result of it. Just her being a stronger child. But yeah. Now, I remember, like doing our track meets in the rain, playing softball in the rain. Yeah, it wasn't a big thing, But then again, you're talking. Well, I was 17 when I graduated high school, but like you're talking up to the age of maybe 19. So I of course we were fearless. Yes, we played in the rain. And now, you say the word around me too much, the joints in my neck start hurting. Wow, guys, it's like we got the swelling part kind of under control. My feet and legs don't swell until I sit here too long, which is another reason I had started using my bed so much. But it was working, so that's what we were doing. But yesterday, not feeling well, the only time I was really getting up was I did cook breakfast for the babies. I did get up and prepare them. I mean, basically like doing food for the kids. I cooked dinner for them last night where we had like sausage spaghetti. But other than that, I was in my bed pretty much. But every time I got up, starting yesterday evening, the pain would set in. And it's hard for me to describe that pain to people who don't understand or know. I'm glad my daughter understands what arthritis is. I really don't like the fact that she has it. She was diagnosed when she was 8 years old. And I knew life was going to be tough for her because of that. But she manages, probably the strongest child I have. But she does. She manages it. She has arthritis in her back and hips and knees. And I, bless my heart, my body's just riddled with it. When we did the finger thing, she saw a lot of arthritis, but it wasn't gout, So we've been doing the ice and heat, ice and heat, ice and heat, keeping it mobile so it doesn't stiffen up. Not doing too much on it because we don't want to add injury to insult or insult to the injury. There's a backwards one for you. I forgot to count I think I counted the rows yesterday. I really don't remember how many I had. Y'all, I'm just kind of, I'm going with it. I know that it's going to be taller than her brothers. I do know that because we haven't even used half the colors. But I also had another idea. I may have enough to just make her two baskets. Either way, I'm gonna have to make two more baskets, because what I did was gave my grandson the one that I made prior to this one and one of the first baskets that I made, and it's not enough for his toys. So I figure, which just came up with that just now, if I make him another one, so he'll have two that's made, make her two and give her the other of the first two that I made, then they will each have 3 baskets. And this is really, it's fun to do. It, to me, this is as soothing and relaxing as people making. I love making blankets, but I really don't like making granny square blankets. I think I'm probably one of the only people who's really over granny squares. You know, I hear other people say how much it's a go-to and how much they love it, and they go on the like I told you, my very first project was a granny square poncho and a granny square tam. You know, and there was a lot of granny squares after that. And the babysitter who taught me to crochet was into a lot of the, I call it thread. I take yarn over thread any day. I really do. I mean, even the DK and the fingering with yarns, because that little doily stuff, Jesus, yo, yeah, I'm not really feeling that so much. I didn't care for it then, and I don't care for it now. Miss Lena used to tell me, that's her name, Miss Lena, Adelina Drumgold. But Miss Lena used to always tell me, when you get older and the more experienced you become and realize just how much you can make with this is going to be so valuable to you. You're going to love this. You're going to enjoy this because you have such a creative mind. And I look at all of the intricate things, and especially jewelries that people make with this, and I'm like, oh my God, it is beautiful. I met a lady in North Carolina who actually crocheted little insects, and I mean, these little things would fit in the palm of your hand. She was using like thread, you know, and I'm like, no. She goes, I can teach you, I can work with you. I believe you can, and I will come sit and crochet with you sometimes, but please don't torture me like that, please. And her name, bless her heart, was Miss Beatrice Piggy. A little history there. Miss Piggy and I belong to the same church in Wilson, North Carolina, which is St. Rose Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ. I say is because the church is still there. I'm no longer a member there, but the church, of course, is still there. And I do consider it my home church. But Miss Piggy and my mom could not get along. You guys, it was like, and it was funny because they were cordial to each other. Miss Piggy was cordial to my mother because she was my mother. She had a bite about her. And I think I kind of enjoy being around those types of people because my mama had a bite about her too. Okay? And, you know, growing up an only child, a lot of my friends were much older. So a lot of them had a bite about them. And them being a teacher's daughter, a lot of them were teachers. So a lot of them have a bite about them. So Miss Piggy's bite and my mother's bite didn't quite jive. Like I said, Miss Piggy got along with my mother because of me, not even because of my grandmother. But my mother got along with Miss Piggy, number one, because she was raised to respect her elders. I love that about my mother. And the other reason was because even though my mama and my grandmama wore false teeth, my mama didn't want to get her teeth knocked out of her. Oh my goodness, y'all, I'm telling you, as adults, you know, a lot of those old country threats would go around. There was no abuse, but and it was funny enough. And me, you know, as a child, me and my cousin as children, it was funny enough that when we heard it, we knew it was a joke. You know, my mother and my aunt, oh my goodness, the things that they could say to each other sometimes. you know. Sometimes they weren't always nice words. But my cousin and I would lay in that den floor and we would laugh and laugh and laugh. So that was why my mama would respect Miss Piggy, because of the way she was raised, and also to not get in trouble with my grandmother. Well, the not so funny part of it, my grandmother got sick after my grandfather passed away. My grandfather passed away in 1976, and my grandmother's health started declining pretty rapidly. It was scary. We were always driving from Virginia to North Carolina, sometimes in the middle of the week. My grandfather's loss, the loss of my grandfather was devastating to many of us. It hit me especially hard. I ended up having to be institutionalized because I lost it. My grandfather was my best friend. And to lose your best friend at the age of 11 and not feel that you have that one person that you could talk to, and if you remember, I told you that I suffered something very horrific in my childhood, and my grandfather passed just as that was ending, but I did not feel that I could tell anybody but my grandfather. And when it ended, I was so ready to talk to my grandfather, to go on one of our drives and just talk. And I knew that he would keep it to himself until he came up with a solution as to how to handle it. I did not want to go to my mother because I was specifically told not to tell my mother, and then it became if I told anyone. But I knew after it was all over, I felt more comfortable talking to my grandfather. But he passed away. So here I am. I've lost my best friend. I have endured this thing that no child should ever go through for 7 years. And I was ready to talk about it because as devastating as this was, it left me very, very confused. So, yeah, I took it hard. My grandmother took it hard as well, because in that time, she had retired. So the only place that she was cooking was at the church and at home. And it was a chaotic time for all of us. My aunt and my mother losing their father. And my mother was very close to her father. She was very close to her father. She was close to her mother too. But for some of you who know this, there's always the one parent that you seem to be closer to. So that was my father for my grandmother. My aunt was, of course, closer to my grandmother. My grandfather, my aunt used to get upset with my granddaddy and tell him, "You always treat her better than you treat your grandson. You do know you have a grandson." My grandfather loved his grandson. My grandfather would talk about his grandson a lot. But my aunt didn't come home as much as my mom did. So he didn't get to see my cousin as much as he got to see me. And I don't think my aunt understood that until kind of recently. We are all grown and senior citizens now. But yeah. But taking it back to the beginning, after my grandfather passed. My grandmother did go through a lot of changes with the church, with home, with everything. It was like her life fell apart. She had been married to this man since she was 15 years old. They got married in 1935. And then my mother came along in 1936. And then here it is, 76, 41 years later. This is the only man you've been with, and he's gone now. And it was a blow to her. But my mother, knowing how honest and how curt Miss Piggy could be, went to Miss Piggy's house one day, both of us actually, and she sat down in Miss Piggy's living room as Miss Piggy allowed me to walk around, because her house was like a maze. The way it was built was like a maze. It looked simple on the outside, but it was so different on the inside. And she asked Miss Piggy to please keep an eye on my grandmother. Now, the one thing I didn't tell you was about the relationship between my grandmother and Miss Piggy. My grandmother was pretty much a quiet woman. When she spoke, when she had to speak with authority, everyone would listen. She would not get loud, but she became, I don't know how to say the word, very syllabic. Every syllable to a sentence was spoken slowly, separately, and deliberately. When my grandmother started talking like that, you knew to cease everything and listen. My grandmother didn't start using the adult words until later years. I would say not even when I graduated high school, probably like when I was my second year in college. So like 1983 maybe, after the birth of her first great grandchild. But yeah, she didn't cuss a lot, and she didn't get loud. But the relationship between Miss Piggy and my grandmother was strange, because when my grandmother was in charge of something, there were two people of the church that she would call on for assistance, Aunt Annie and Aunt Evelyn. And this particular year that started all of this, my grandmother was put in charge, and Miss Piggy wanted to make her spot known as well, and my grandmother had to put her in her place. So they didn't lose total respect for each other. They just really had nothing to say to each other for like years. But they were both fishermen, so sometimes they would end up on the same fishing trips. My grandmother didn't mind driving alone, but sometimes other friends would go, like Aunt Addie, Aunt Lizzie, Miss Lily Mae, Aunt Jessie, I want to say Miss B. I think her name was Miss B. I said Aunt Annie. Aunt Addie too. Addie Morgan. Annie Hines. But anyway, it was a group of them. Lizzie Jones, Lily Mae Brown. There was a whole bunch of us. Because I went too. My grandmama went. I went. That was like the bond between me and my grandmother. It's like I was a tomboy, but I was a girly tomboy. I love climbing trees. I love showing the guys that I could beat them running. I could beat them riding bikes. I could beat them disassembling and reassembling a bike. I love showing guys up. I did. Showing them that girls had the might and the power. I knew I wasn't stronger than any guy out here, but I believed I had the brains and the ingenuity. So I was always getting into contests with guys. And my grandmother liked that about me. My grandfather, not so much. As close as my grandfather and I were, he wasn't really crazy about that side of me. He was always telling me I needed to slow down. I needed to check myself. But hey. So, for a long time, my grandmother and Miss Piggy didn't really have a lot to do and say. But bringing it back to the crochet, when I graduated high school and Miss Piggy found out that crocheting was not just a fad for me, was when she offered to teach me how to do a lot of filet and lacy crochet. To which I said, no ma'am, I love you, and I will come over and sit with you and crochet every day this summer if you'd like for me to. But I am not, and I will call a small crochet hook a needle, because they pierce the skin just like needles. They do. Those little bitty hooks. Whew. Barely bigger than the eye of a needle. Yeah. But I told her, I said, I'm not working with those needles. And she was the one who actually told me, or stayed on me about calling them hooks, and told me how insulting it was to a crocheter to call a hook a needle. And I guess, I picked up on that too as I grew up in my crochet journey. I tried to work with her with the yarns, but it wasn't her niche. It wasn't. I didn't understand that then. I was one of those kids. I thought, because of my upbringing, that when I came up with an idea, my idea was probably the best idea. I would tell you about it, and if you didn't go along with it, I would ask you to try it, and if you still didn't want to go along with it, I would do it so that you could see that it worked. And if you still didn't want to go along with it, then we started kind of separating company, because our minds didn't work alike. And I had always been that person who wanted to take it to the next step and make it better. Take it to the next step and make it better. That can be done, and we can do this, and I see a way it can be done. I have a small knot here. Thank God for fingernails, because, and it not being a tight knot, I hope not. It's in my teal, so it's like when the shadow falls on it, I can't see the definition of the yarn. I'm just basically grabbing at straws, which means that eventually, if I don't loosen it up, I'm going to have to reach for one of those needles. I think that's why I keep them around, because they are perfect for this. Y'all, I have a knot, and I don't want to cut it because it's like, oh my goodness. Do I just cut it and lose my life? It's just a teeny weeny little thing. But it's not small enough that I could pull it tight and crochet over it. It's just enough that it will leave a loop, and being for my granddaughter, that little loop would interest her. See, I do have them, and I keep them close. I got a whole bunch of them. Okay, we're not going to work on this for a long time. Hopefully just long enough to get it in there. Okay, it slid right in there, and that won't work when we leave it. Look at you. Oh, look at you trying to be up. See, that's why I keep them around. Told you I wasn't gonna work on the long, y'all. But yeah, my family and Miss Piggy, and my fishing family, and my family back home, you know, I miss the closeness of the relationships that I had back home in Carolina. I miss that so much. But as much as I would love to go back home now, I'm afraid to, because it's not the same. Plus, there are not a lot of people there that I even know anymore. My first house, the one that I told you about, where I played in the floodwaters and on the base of the tree so much, it's been gone for years. As a matter of fact, when I went back after graduating high school, I went back and the lady was living there, and she would allow me to come in and just walk around and take in the house. You know, of course she had it furnished differently, and she had a lot of different things going on, but she would let me come and just sit with her and hold conversation. And eventually I stopped going. From where we were on Queen Street, I would still walk to the swimming pool every summer, just about every day of every summer. So I'd go right past the house. But then after graduating from carpentry and getting my certification, I came to Virginia, which was in '84. The house was still there. And my aunt and I went back. No, my mother and I went back. My mother and I went back I think it was in '85. I came here in October of '84. So I think it was around the beginning of the year '85. And we would just go to my grandmother's whenever we would go back. It was always to my grandmother's and back home. And where her house was located, when we got off the interstate, instead of coming up the back way, we'd come straight to the street off the main highway and come straight down to the house. So, you know, we didn't even have to go past there. After my grandmother passed in I came here in '84. We went back in '85. My grandmother passed away in '85, in July of '85. We went back, of course, to funeralize her. And then when I came back to Virginia that time, I didn't go back to North Carolina for years. It was years. And when I went back to visit my grandparents' grave. and I rode by to just look at where we lived when she passed and the old house. And when I went by the old house, it wasn't there. Y'all, it was as if somebody sucked all of the oxygen out of my cells. I was surprised, I was hurt, I was scared, I was angry. So many emotions. Just, thinking about everything we had gone through in the house, and it wasn't there anymore. My memory, I felt like they had just taken away my memories, and there was another thing I had to focus on. I think part of my problem is that I have like separation anxiety, separation issues, and in working with a therapist, I'm starting to understand why. My grandfather and my uncle were my strong father figures in my life. So neither of the two of them was there every day. I saw my uncle a lot less than I saw my grandfather, and of course I lost my grandfather when I was 11. So I never had a dad that I could have to straighten the guy out before he took me out on a date, or help me on a skateboard. When I first decided I wanted to try a skateboard, I was afraid to, because I had seen the damage that it could have done. Well, my mother didn't do skateboard, so I waited until the first time I wanted to try a skateboard, I think I was like 7 years old. But being so small, and being told that I was too young, and not having somebody to sneak around and show me anyway, you can butter up dad and he would do it. Anyway, that was my perception of a dad. You could butter him up and he would do anything you want. And also, I believe that if I had a father around, then what happened to me from the age of 4 to 11 definitely wouldn't have happened. I honestly believe that. I believe that even if my uncle lived in the same town, or my grandfather lived in the same town, I believed that wouldn't happen. But when I first got on the skateboard at the age of 13, I got on and off in the same second. Never picked up a skateboard again to try it. Didn't. I wanted to try surfing. In my mind it was a lot like skateboarding, so I was afraid to do it. And I would develop a fear of something, and there would always be someone there to help me get through that fear. And I'm explaining my separation anxiety now. In high school, I knew that I could run distances better than sprinting. I just did not have the speed to sprint. So I wanted to try hurdles because I was really good at jumping things. But I had seen some of the catastrophes that people had from hurdling. And my junior year, there was another track person who was, oh my God, he was dynamic on the hurdles. And he and I were not friends. We were not friendly to each other. We were not friends. Nothing. And the hurdlers were practicing in the gymnasium, and I was practicing with the medicine ball because I basically did shot put and discus. So I was working on my weight. I'm, tossing the medicine ball, throwing the medicine ball, the back and forth. We were doing everything with the lobbing the medicine balls, everything with the medicine ball. And every time the hurdlers got up to run and jump the hurdles, I would stop, and I was just like, because it looked so graceful it looked like it was so much fun, and I so wanted to do it. And this one particular individual, Kenwood Holland, came over. Like I said, we did not get along. We did not get along. We were there as Thetamores together, and we didn't get along. But Kenwood came over to me and said, "You want to learn how to do it?" Oh my God, it was like he just spoke apple pie to me. Yes, let's go. He takes me over to the hurdle, and first we sit down on the floor, and we're hurdling on the floor, and we're learning, hand to toe, hand to toe, hand to toe, and then we alternate, because your feet are not going to always hit the same, so you have to be able to you have to be able to jump with both legs, and then we go back and forth. We're switching back and forth, and we're doing this. So then we were running, and we would do it without jumping. We'd go tat 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 however he said go. When he would say go, you had to extend and reach on command. The following week, he took me through a week of practice. The following week, I jumped my first hurdle. Looked like I had been doing it for years. Kenwood was the best teacher. He was the best teacher. And from that moment, he became like a brother. And I was, even though I never did do it in competition, I would always practice with him. But it helped me as far as jumping fences. I told y'all I was a tomboy. And sometimes when I would get involved in races, we would race through the neighborhoods to try to see who could get to the store the fastest. So I'm jumping people's fences, And of course, guys don't think girls can hurdle fences like that. But Kenwood taught me how to jump those hurdles. And I got really, 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 really good at it for that purpose. So, here again, as a senior in high school, Kenwood was involved in a fatal car crash. So we lost him too. So and I think the reason I'm talking about that so much right now is because in 2017 I found out that I was not an only child. Never met my father. Never met him. Never saw a picture of him. Nothing. So I went through some really, really crazy dating patches in my life. Afraid to date younger because I didn't know if they were related, if it was a brother, if it was a cousin. I had no way of knowing. I didn't know. And then, so I was dating older for a while, and I'm like, oh my God, suppose I meet and date my father, or suppose I meet and date an uncle or an older cousin or an older brother. So then I withdrew from dating for a while. I just didn't trust anybody. And then I don't know, it's like certain things in my life would happen out of, like when I would ride roller coasters, where a lot of people would call out for mom. My mom would ride roller coasters with me. I'd call for my dad. Never knew him. I'd call for a brother. Didn't have one. I'd even call for a sister sometimes. I'm in the air screaming, I'm like, sis! Didn't have one. Well, in 2017, I found out I had 3 brothers and a sister. About a month and a half after I found out about them, I drove to Maryland to meet than one brother and my sister. I was accepted with open arms. I was taken in. I was fed like Antoine Fisher, and that's a movie. If y'all don't know about it, you need to watch it. It's an older movie, but it's I would say that it touches home with me, with the exception of the condition of the mother in that movie. But it touches home with me a lot. The foster mother in that movie would remind me of a lot of my teachers. You know, those of you who have seen it know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who haven't, it's a really good movie. I suggest you see it. I forget Luke's name. I want to say his name is Derek Luke and Denzel Washington. And the lady from How to Get Away with Murder. But those are the people. I mean, when I tell you, that was the first movie that Denzel and the lady were in together. They did Fences together, if you don't know who I'm talking about. But Antoine Fisher is like a really good movie. And that's how I felt when I found out I had siblings. Especially when I drove to Maryland to meet them. And I was able to meet my sister, her 2 children, and two of her 4 grandchildren. I met her other sisters, not by my father. And then I met one of my brothers. There were 2 more brothers, an older and the one that, both of them older than I, but one was older than him and one was younger than him. But meeting the 2 siblings that I met and them taking me in and just showering me with so much love and so much information and so much acceptance, it was like I felt a completion, a questionable completion is probably the best way to put it, that I had never felt before. And it felt good. I felt comfortable to be able to date now, even though at that time I had already been through 2 divorces. But I felt in a better place. That was also the year I took a vow of celibacy. I did. But it was all like a part of that healing for me. The vow that I took was before I found out I had siblings. I took the vow in March. Found out I had siblings in August. Met my siblings the last of September, 1st of October. And then later on that October, I drove down to Georgia to spend time with my brother, the one that I had met up in Maryland. He flew from Georgia to Maryland to meet me. So I went down and I spent time with him. While I was down there, I met my niece and nephew, my brother's kids. And at the same time, I'm maintaining a relationship with my sister's son, my nephew, because we did a lot of bowling in Maryland. So I'm feeling really good. I'm auntie. I'm legitimately an auntie. And it felt so good to be called auntie. And it filled my heart. I'm like, oh my God, I've got nieces and nephews. You know, and as a kid, I wanted 12 children. And I raised 35. I have 3 living, but I raised 35. And it felt good to be called mom. And I've always been drawn to and wanted to be a part of a big family. So here it is now. I've got a sister and 3 brothers. I've got 2 nieces and 2 nephews that I've met. I've got great nieces and nephews. I've got sisters who, you know, are more like stepsisters. You know, not half sisters, but they're more like stepsisters who have taken me in. And then like all of a sudden, everything just stopped. I'm texting good morning inspirations. Everybody's responding except this group of people. So when I go back and I revamp my list of people to send this to, I don't want to leave these people out because they're my family. You know, they're my bloods. And then I had a real family member to tell me, you know, all this stuff that you send to us is really cute, but I don't have time to read it. Miss me with that. That was a blow. It was the bluntness that I had missed from my mother. And I knew that, you know, he meant it, but I was like, okay. You know, so then his mother finally said to me, if it's longer than 3 lines, I'm not going to read it. I'm like, okay. You know, so I didn't feel bad about coming down on my list. And if I can get rid of 2 family members with this that I see frequently throughout the year, these people who have taken me in and threw me away like a pile of trash, I can do that too. So then one of my nephews reaches out to me, and he's actually the one that got me started doing YouTube videos, a news reporter in New York. But he reaches out to me, and we started talking, and he validates my role as auntie. He is the only person I feel I have a connection to my father through. And that's sad. I love him for that. I do. And I don't have any animosity towards the rest of the family. And I understand people's lives are busy. I get that. But am I not worth a happy birthday once a year? You know, and what I get from them is, you know, we just found out about you. Well, excuse me, but I just found out about you too. She's still here. She's still here. Right here. Right here. Whew. You know, and I'm just waiting for someone to say, well, I got to get to know you first. To my YouTube family, I feel closer to you than I feel to them. Just putting it out there. Well, y'all, it's not raining as bad as it was. In about 25 minutes, I will be leaving here, going to get my grandkids. And to Jennifer and family, I really hope and pray that you had a safe trip. To Lisa of Happy to Hook, you have 2.5 weeks. You have 2.5 weeks, girlfriend. I know you can do this. I'm going to keep crocheting on my baskets. The only reason I have it sitting sturdy, y'all, is because the basket that I was working from is actually sitting in here. I considered doing that too, but it's got so many holes in the bottom of it. I didn't tell you what I was going to do with the popsicle sticks. I'm going to eventually take the popsicle sticks out, and what I thought I was going to do was just crochet them together and then attach it that way so it would stay a little sturdier. But when I threw the basket in here so I could keep up with the basket, I'm like, that's not bad. So I still may do that. I still may cut like the lids and things off of boxes that I have that I want to use to open boxes, and just line the bottom and the sides, and let her use these. I think I have 4 of these little baskets, so I might even incorporate the same thing in my grandson's so that he can have a base. One doesn't like to have that the other one doesn't like to be lacking what the other has. They are years apart. Yes, 6 and 9. But to tell one, I've got something you don't have. If we buy her a doll baby, we got to buy him an action figure. If we go out and get him a pack of socks for school, and then we got to go get her a pack of socks for school. Her sock drawer overrunning, but we got to go get her a pack of socks for school. Yeah, and it works the same way both ways. You know, they're starting to become individualized with their taste of foods and things, but not in everything else. No. Anything you got, I needed to. That's just like when their mom gets in from work, one will run and jump in her arms and give her a hug and a kiss, which she just has to brace herself for 2, because they will not outdo each other. But that's kids. That's what they do. Yes. Okay, y'all, I'm almost out of my second ball of rainbow. I thank God that I have a lot of rainbow over there. I got like 5 or 6 more balls. So I can easily finish this one. I'm going to finish this row and give y'all a count real quick, and then I'm going to scoot around the corner and get my grandbabies. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 27, 28, 29. 29. I think his was 32 rows. 29, 30, 31, 32, 33 rows. His was. So if I make hers the same as his, this is the last row before I add the handle, the beginning of the handle row, the opening for the handles. And then it'll be 3 rounds over that. And with it just being, what, the 16th, I got time to make her second basket this month. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Okay. I finished that round. There we go. Okay. Let's see the basket. Yeah. I do have a pink basket around here. It has like designs on the side of it. I might use that for a second basket for her. I might let this stay like it is. You know, and just go through and revamp her toys. But yeah. This is 29. I think I was on 22 yesterday. I can't. Don't hold me to that. It might be wrong. But that was 7 rows that we just did, y'all. Yep, that was 7 whole rounds, I'm sorry, that we did. And our next color is going to be yellow. And see, we still got this left to work. That's the popsicle sticks down the bottom. But we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 cakes in there. And We got a purple on the bed that belongs in here. A light purple up there on the bed that belongs in here. So that's 6. Plus we still got teal and aqua. And we've got enough of this one to at least do 3 more rounds. So yeah, and like I said, I got 5 more balls, 5 more cakes of that. So we're good. But I am going to get my babies. I will talk to you all later. Remember that I love you. But I need you to love you the way I deserve to be loved, because you deserve that same love. You deserve to know that you are the absolute best. You deserve the best. I know that you need the best. I know that you want the best. So you have to give you the best before you can give anybody else anything. Okay? I love you guys. Until we meet again, stay cool, stay sweet. Peace out.